Welcome to my hellebore jewelry tutorial, where I will teach you how to make this beautiful pendant using a real preserved hellebore leaf with UV resin. So I wanted to start off by explaining some of the supply list. I did include a PDF attachment with clickable links to buy each of these on Amazon if that's your only option. However, I would like to suggest some of this stuff you can just get at the Dollar Tree and it'll be way cheaper. Okay, bear with me as I explain what each of these items are. So the first item is a flower drying silica gel. This is what you're going to put the hellebore bloom into in order to preserve its color. Despite the name silica gel, it's actually more of a sand consistency, which you'll see later in the video. Then we have necklace chains, which I have a link for those on Amazon. And they come with at least 10, I believe. You can buy a single one, but I just prefer buying a packet of a few since I end up making and selling these a lot. So silver I found tends to be the best color to pair with the hellebore leaf, at least the colors of the ones that I use the most. Next we've got the leaf bales. You could get plain bales, but I just love the way the leaf looks, and that's the one I'm using here in this video. We've got simple earring hooks, jump rings, UV resin. The UV resin type dries a lot quicker than just the regular resin that takes hours, if not 24 hours, to let it sit and dry. And with a UV light, I set the link for the one that I'm using in the attachment, but you could get a cheaper UV tiny little flashlight if you don't plan to do this a whole lot. I also use a tiny silicone mat that I cut to fit the tray of the UV light. It fits inside of there. Then I also use a small jewelry drill and some mica powder. I just added a little bit in the resin for this pendant. Of course, you need the real hellebore flower. They usually sell these at gardening stores. You could also see if there's one nearby at a garden. A small pair of pliers, a silver metallic pen, a small paintbrush, a Tupperware container. I actually used one for eggs, so it's long and thin, an N95 mask, and gloves. Don't be like me. I'm not using gloves in this tutorial, but you should. Okay, so to begin, I am actually going out to my garden to pick the first hellebore in bloom. And I just wanted to show this one. It's so pretty. I love the shade of green and that mauve shade. And I just pinched the bloom off. So here's where you're going to put it in the flower preserving silica gel sand. And I just like to cover the bloom here. And if possible, flatten the petals a little bit so that they're less curved when I start working with it after it's dry. So I want to explain why I do this and not the method of pressing inside of a book. When I'm designing jewelry, I don't want it to be super flat. I want it to have some three-dimensional shape, and the silica gel really helps the color keep a lot of the vibrancy, more so than when you press it inside of a book. So you're going to go ahead and leave this here for 3 days before you take it out. So here in the corner you'll see how the flowers look once they're dry, and I have taken one petal off of the bloom, and this is what I'm going to work with to make the pendant. These really do hold most of their color. This is about a year old, believe it or not, so they're one of the ones that maintain their color. I'm taking my UV resin and I'm going to put a little bit inside of this cap. And then I'm basically just going to use my small paintbrush and start painting layers onto one side of the petal. I like to start with a thin layer on on one side before I dry. And the reason I do one side at a time is it just gets really messy if you're going to try and do like a dip. I see some people doing that. They'll dip the entire petal or flower into this huge thing of resin. I just don't really like it that thick. So I like to paint the layers on to keep it a little bit more intricate and detailed and not like this huge glob of resin. But I will paint 3, maybe 4 layers because it does, in the end, make it a little bit more durable. Once you have that painted, it's a great time to put it under the UV light. This is the one I did show in my Amazon link. I really love it. I've tried quite a few, but this one is my favorite. So as you can see on the top, you can push the button and it has anywhere from 2, 3, or 5 minutes. In my experience, 2 minutes really is enough. Once that's done, you can go ahead and turn it off, or it'll auto turn off after 2 minutes, and your resin should be hardened on the petal. Flip it over and go ahead and paint the other side. One note I wanted to mention, if you can see the purple lavender shade of silicone I have sitting on top of this tray. And that's just because silicone is really great to work with resin because it does not get stuck to the surface. It comes and peels off really easily. So I would highly recommend just cutting a little strip of silicone mat. I also included that in the Amazon list. And just taping it to the corners of this tray for the UV resin. Once you get this other side painted, go ahead and set aside the little resin behind something so it is in the shade before you turn on your UV lamp, because it will dry out any nearby resin that you leave out. So set it up here for another 2 minutes. And there you have it. There is your first layer of resin for both sides of the petal. So it should feel a lot more sturdy now, but this is just the first layer. From here, we're gonna go ahead and paint one more layer on each side. For this layer, I really do love adding just a small amount of mica powder. So this link I did include in Amazon to the specific one that I am using here. And now I'm going to go ahead and start mixing it up. You could use any color here. I've just found that things like green, purple, anything sort of complementary to the shade of the flower work really well, and in just a very subtle amount. You can add more mica powder to almost change the shade of a flower petal, but I don't do that with hellebore because I really don't want to lose the fine detail of the little veins inside of the leaf. That's one of the best features of it. So here we're just going to go ahead and paint a layer again, one on each side, and it will end up giving it a little bit of a subtle shimmer because of that powder. And it's time again for the UV light for this side, so leave it here for a couple minutes. Here it is time to paint the other side of the leaf. So we're at 2 coats per side at this point. And I am gonna add another coat eventually after I do the silver outline technique that I'll show you soon. Once you get this side painted, once again, hide that resin and get your UV lamp ready for 2 minutes. Now that side is done, I wanted to give you a quick close-up as to how it looks after 2 coats of resin on each side. That shimmer is so subtle, you'd probably have to zoom in right now to even see it. But anyway, this is about done, and it's time to move on to the next step. I'm using this metallic pen, and I outline the outsides of the hellebore leaf. And I'm careful here, you have to try to get it about the same thickness around the outside of the leaf. and you have to do one side at a time. So here I'm just outlining the leaf, and then I actually just blew on it for about a minute to let it dry quickly so that I could do the next layer of resin. Here's a closer look. I just love this detail. I really think it adds a lot of character to the piece instead of just doing the leaf by itself. And it kind of ties it into that silver chain. So this is where I let it dry for a couple minutes. Once it's dry, you can test, just very lightly dab the edge of the silver to make sure that it's not rubbing off on your finger first. And then you can go ahead and paint one more layer, and this time make sure you're getting it over that silver that you painted. Doing this really helps it from kind of rubbing or wearing off that silver outline, because once you wear it for a while or sweat gets on it, that silver will come off. I learned the hard way. So this step, in my opinion, is one of the more important layers to put on this flower petal. Once that side is done and dry, it's time to move on and do the same thing for the other side. In case you haven't learned by now, this whole process, I think it's a bit of a meditative process. It's so time consuming, and people don't realize how long this takes to do because of the layers of resin. Again, I've seen people just dip the flowers into the resin. I just personally don't like how they come out looking. So I'm a stickler for the details, so that's why I choose to go the long route here. And I actually sell these pendants for about $40 at local art festivals. And this one really is a favorite. I usually never have any extras at the end of any event, so I really love to make these. Once you've got that cured, go ahead and take it out and get your drill ready. We're going to go ahead and drill a little hole on the top of the flower petal, and this is where we're going to put our bail. So this can be, just be gentle here. I have made a couple of mess ups at some point where I've messed up the hole or gotten it crooked, and it just messes up the whole design. So once I've got this hole drilled, I'm wiping off the dusty particles, and now it's time to get your bail, jump ring, and your necklace chain ready to assemble. Take your pliers and attach the jump ring to the leaf bail and attach that to the necklace chain. Next, we're going to pinch the bail into the drilled hole at the top of the petal. And really, that's it. There you have it. That is the hellebore petal flower pendant. I wanted to go ahead and include what I would do if I were going to turn these into earrings. First of all, you would need to pick petals that look quite similar before you start, but really it's the same process here. We're just taking the bail and then we're attaching it to an earring hook. So it's very simple to do complementary earrings. That's it for the tutorial. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it and that you really have a blast creating nature-inspired jewelry. Here is a collection I made for my Etsy shop using the same technique I just taught you. You can make all sorts of jewelry. Be sure to hit subscribe for more creative content.